It's 2020. The world is burning. American fascism is on the rise. There's a global pandemic killing hundreds of thousands of people, and the USA is on the brink of collapse. Yep. It's Jello Biafra time. Jello Biafra, most famously known for being the lead singer of the Dead Kennedys and instrumental in the founding of Alternative Tentacles, an independent record label, comes back with his third full-length release under the Jello Biafra and the Guantanamo School of Medicine name. Jello's been unusually quiet in the past 7 years, and they've done a couple live shows under this name. He's done some DJ sets. There was a live album released of him doing some blues classics, but under the Guantanamo School of Medicine name, the last full-length release was 2013's White People and the Damage Done. This album, Tea Party Revenge Porn, starts off with the heaviest intro any Jello Biafra and the Guantanamo School of Medicine release has had. Probably the heaviest intro any Jello release has had since Lard's Fork Boy off of The Last Temptation of Reed. It is immediately clear with this intro that Jello & Co., they're not fucking around. After the opening track bangs around in your head for 6 minutes or so, the Lard comparisons continue with the second track, People with Too Much Time on Their Hands. This also comes with a drum beat that could be lifted easily from Ministry's Just One Fix, and beautiful guitar noodling by the victim family's Ralph Spite in between Jello's vocal passages. The song itself details the writings of online obsessives about conspiracies like how about Obama is a Muslim, and even a story about an ex of Jello's who said that he was hiding guns in his trunk to hunt down ex-Kennedy members, and how ridiculous it all is. It's actually a semi-personal song from Jello, which is rare. From there, the album opens up into probably the heaviest and fastest and most raw I've heard from a punk veteran in quite some time. Whether it's the manic speed of A Boring Day Is What I Need, the pounding We Created Putin, or the strange gallop of Let's Go Stare at Bloody Dead People, even to the unrelenting feedback of Satan's Comb over the intro, this album is raw and ripping and doesn't let up. Now, this comes with pluses and minuses. It's immediately clear on the first listen that this is a full listen. Whether it's the screeching guitars, the absolutely all-encompassing bass, or the unrelenting drums, it's all very well put together and well produced. Now, this makes for a great listening experience, but one of the cornerstones of Jello Biafra's songwriting is the political commentary, the lyrics, and the vocals. Obviously, he's the lead singer. So this production style actually works against the usual production style of Jello Biafra. In fact, for most of the songs of this album, I'm struggling to listen to him, and I can barely hear what he's saying most of the time. Now sure, a line or two will always stick out with Jello Biafra, but unless it's an intentionally quiet part to focus on the vocals, a complete stop of the music to highlight a single line, or a beautiful instrumental detour off a cliff, you don't really hear too much of what Jello's saying. Now, what can be said about the lyrics that I have heard is a variation of topics and quality. For example, in We Created Putin, this is a song that needs to be addressed, and American imperialism has been addressed by Jello in the past, but a lot of places in it, the lyrics fall short. For example, but when the Soviet Union fell, where was our Marshall Plan? Now, the sentiment is there. I understand what he's trying to say, but the Marshall Plan is a weird phrase to invoke because it had specific restrictions against the Soviet Union, and one of the pillars of its creation was to curb communism. So the fall of the USSR would not really necessitate a new Marshall Plan. Now, I will admit, obviously, that the Trump-Russia connection is a very real one, but the way that the song phrases it is it's kind of taking away some agency from Trump and putting it all onto Putin. And this is a bit of a misfire, in my opinion, even if Larry Boothroyd's bass has a beautiful dub taste to it. Now, speaking of Trump, this album has a suspicious lack of Trump bashing in it. And I, for one, think this is to the album's benefit. Jello at least understands that the spot that the USA is in right now is of its own making, and that Trump is merely a symptom. Whether he's talking about the competition that fostered this environment in The Ghost of Vince Lombardi, or the average bloodlust of the American citizen in the aforementioned Let's Go Look at Bloody Dead People. In fact, the opening and closing tracks of this album were written before 2016, and they still fit really well, which is more of an indictment of American society than this album. Now, the further you get into this album, the more variety actually kicks up from it, and the second half starts off with one of the most interesting tracks, No More Selfies. Starting with a galloping western riff, it develops into a cross between Burgers of Wrath and Shockupy. Now, with a title like No More Selfies, I was expecting a boomer-esque take like, oh, what if phones but too much? But the further into the track that you get, the harder it is to argue with the message. Jello talks about people approaching him for pictures when he's eating dinner, just hanging out with friends, and it gets a little disturbing near the end when he brings up that he has been asked for selfies while peeing, while at Dave Brocky's funeral crying his eyes out. For those who don't know, Dave Brocky was the real name of Oderus Urungus from Gwar. And he even talks about somebody grabbing him from behind and shoving a phone in his face and he had to like punch them because he thought he was being assaulted. Think of how you'd feel is one of the mantras of the song. And with the picture he's painted with all of these anecdotes, it's not hard to empathize with him. The combination of this and people with too much time on their hands probably makes this the most personal Jello Biafra album. Now that being said, there are downsides to this album. A lot of the songwriting does get muddled. If you compare this to the last release, White People and the Damage Done, every single song had a very distinct flavor and taste to it. And this one, at times, you can feel like you've been there before on the same album, even if there is a little bit more songwriting in the finer points. Jello's vocals fall flat on occasion. For example, Let's Go Stare at Bloody Dead People, he puts on a fake, boring accent for the song, and while he puts it on very well, a fake, boring accent is still a boring accent. The topics are varied enough, but on occasion they do fall flat. For example, how can you live up to the amazing title Taliban USA when the bulk of the song is essentially, haha, pro-lifers don't care about fetuses once they're born, which, like, yeah, it's true, but we have been known. Like I said, there are good lines. Like in the title track, someone has to stand up for the stupid, goddammit, is beautifully delivered, but the rest of the vocals are kind of buried and don't really stand out as much. I will also say that not enough praise is heaped on the rest of the Guantanamo School of Medicine. Everybody brought their A game. They all sound phenomenal, and even though at times I do find the songwriting a little bit bland, there's more than enough parts to make up for it that sound amazing, and I would say a special shout out to Jason Willard, the drummer, because he goes fucking hard on every single one of these tracks. And the last con I have to bring up is not necessarily the album itself's fault, but I feel like I would be amiss if I didn't bring it up. In anticipation of this album dropping, there were 4 music videos put out by Alternative Tentacles. They say 5 on the website, but I can't find it, so if anyone can find it, by all means let me know, but I'm just going to say 4. They were all done by Annie Kid Wolf, and every single one of them basically amounts to an MS Movie Maker collage of GIFs and pictures pulled off the internet of, like, haha political humor. The worst offender of this by far is We Created Putin, which is a fine enough song by itself, but you put it through this video of haha Putin and Trump gay. Like, that's what we're criticizing these guys for, not fucking everything else. I think that these videos actually soured my idea of these singles, because in the album context, they sound amazing, but by themselves, with this background, kind of sucks, to be honest. All in all, this has been a fantastic effort by Jello and the boys. I really recommend this album, especially to anybody who's a Jello fan in the past, or a fan of punk music, or wants to get into punk music. I find that it's very accessible for all those reasons. One thing I will say, though, is that Jello's brand of satire is a little bit lighter on this album, with titles like Taliban USA, Let's Go Stare at Bloody Dead People, People with Too Much Time on Their Hands, No More Selfies. He's kind of put his satire on the back burner a little bit. Not completely. It's still there, but it seems like he's understanding that it's not as funny anymore. But it's still a little funny. Also, ending the album with Jello singing a line of, "We built this Putin on blood and soil." Chef's kiss to that. Alright folks, that was my review of Jello Biafra and the Guantanamo School of Medicine's new release, Tea Party Revenge Porn. If you like it, check it out, and if you like this video, check me out. Hit subscribe, hit like, comment, call me an idiot, call me right, call me a combination of all three, and, move on with your life, or, stay and watch more videos. Just saying.